All right, let's go now to the United Nations, where the Qatari ambassador is speaking at the Security Council that's taking place as we speak.
Regional spillover. The state of Qatar reiterates its strong condemnation of this brutal aggression and collective punishment in Gaza, which led to complete destruction and turned most residents into ITPs. Today, there is no safe space in Gaza. The statement of the humanitarian coordinator in the occupied Palestinian territories indicated that the Israeli occupation is increasingly cutting off northern Gaza and preventing the delivery of all basic necessities, meaning that people are made to choose between forced displacement or being starved and shelled, and both options are violations of international humanitarian law. The High Commissioner of Human Rights stated that the forced transfer of people from northern Gaza could amount to a war crime. The aggression of occupation forces also involved atrocities that amounted to war crimes under international law. They included shelling densely populated areas and tents of refugees, cutting off basic humanitarian supplies, and forced displacement, including evacuation orders to so-called safe routes and areas that are then being shelled anyway after displaced people move to them, the besiegement and starvation, and the targeting of UN premises and convoys. All these measures are clear violations of the Geneva Conventions that oblige the occupying power to provide food and medication. These measures are also violations of Security Council resolutions. According to OCHA reports, the number of victims in Gaza exceeds 42,000. Around 500,000 have reached levels of hunger. The number of trucks entering Gaza declined to the lowest levels, and all entry ports have been closed this month. An almost complete siege has been imposed on the north of Gaza. What is transpiring now in Gaza suggests an attempt to destroy all resemblance of life in Gaza, to empty the strip of its people. This is a violation of Security Council Resolution 2735, which rejected any attempts to bring about a territorial or demographic change in the strip. 9 months have passed without any implementation of provisional measures by the ICJ that stipulated that Israel must take all possible measures to prevent the commission of actions against Palestinians that fall under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, and to prevent incitement to genocide and provide all the necessities. Madam President, we reject any attempts to discredit UNRWA and to target UNRWA. It's an humanitarian agency. There is no alternative to UNRWA. There is more need for UNRWA in light of the disastrous humanitarian situation now. Any attempt to undermine UNRWA goes against international resolutions that established the agency as part of our collective responsibility towards the issue of refugees until it's settled justly. This is why UNRWA must be supported. We in Qatar have increased our contributions to UNRWA this year. The target of UNRWA is part of a campaign targeting the United Nations as a whole, notably the Secretary General. We take this opportunity to express our solidarity with the Secretary General and thank him for his good offices, which fall under the mandate of the UN to settle disputes peacefully and carry out humanitarian action. Madam President, Qatar condemns the Israeli aggression on Lebanon, which left thousands dead and injured. We support our diplomatic efforts. We join the American-French initiative for a temporary ceasefire for 21 days to give space for the permanent diplomatic solution and the implementation of Resolution 17.1. My country was among the first to address the worsening humanitarian crisis in Lebanon by providing humanitarian relief. This adds to our humanitarian efforts to alleviate the suffering in Gaza and providing treatment to the injured and support UN humanitarian efforts. UNIFIL has been recently attacked directly and repeatedly by Israeli forces. In this context, the state of Qatar, as a troop contributing country to UNIFIL, joined the shared statement to condemn attacks on a force mandated by the Security Council, which is inconsistent with commitments under the Charter and international law, and it is also a threat to the vital role of UNIFIL to maintain stability. Madam President, the destruction of the livelihoods of a whole people cannot bring about peace and security for anyone. There is a wide international recognition reflected in GA and Security Council resolutions that security requires comprehensive and just and lasting peace. The only settlement to the Palestinian question is the two-state solution, which includes the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with each Jerusalem as its capital along the lines of 1967, according to UN resolutions and the Arab Peace Initiative. This would be an expression of the right of self-determination to the Palestinian people. It is time to recognize the state of Palestine and granted full membership in the United Nations as it fulfilled all criteria. The responsibility of the Security Council is to push for sustainable settlement. As a first step, the Security Council must stop any escalation and must demand a ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon. It must stop the attacks by occupation forces and settlers in the West Bank and must stop any attempts to use the current situation to expand settlements in the occupied territories or to alter the status quo of religious sites in Jerusalem. The responsibility of the Council is also to send a clear message of support to the UN and its agencies, including UNRWA and the peacekeeping operations. Madam President, over a year, the state of Qatar has made extensive efforts with Egypt and the United States to reach a ceasefire agreement and to release prisoners and detainees and to deliver enough aid to those in need. That would pave the way for serious negotiations leading to a sustainable solution. These efforts led to a truce agreement last November. Despite obstacles to mediation, the state of Qatar continues these efforts to resume negotiations to stop the war in Gaza and to reach a comprehensive ceasefire. In conclusion, Mr. President, the Security Council has the necessary tools under the Charter to put an end to this unacceptable situation and to ensure the implementation of its resolution. We call upon all Council members to fulfill this responsibility at this critical juncture in the region and for the people of the region. I thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Qatar for their statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Indonesia.
Right, we've been listening there to the Qatari ambassador to the United Nations. The Security Council is discussing the situation in the Middle East, and that's also comes as Israeli strikes continue in northern Gaza. At least 143 Palestinians have been killed. Let's now go to Gabriel Elizondo. He's at the UN headquarters in New York. Gabe, what has stood out for you? What were some of the main points coming from the Qatari ambassador, given that this is a scheduled meeting, but there have been a number of statements made related to what's happening in the Middle East?
Yeah, sure. I think that the Qatari ambassador really highlighted two things that have been a theme through most of the speeches that we've been hearing for the last several hours. And that's number one, the crimes being committed in northern Gaza by Israel and calls for unimpeded humanitarian aid into all of Gaza, but particularly into the north, where the humanitarian situation has gotten beyond horrible. It's gotten to the point of pure desperation, as one ambassador described it. So I think she highlighted that. She said that it's unspeakable crimes, brutal aggression by Israel, she said, and collective punishment that she said that the Qataris were very much against. And we've heard that theme from other speakers as well. She also focused on UNRWA. She said that Qatar rejects Israel's attempt to discredit UNRWA, particularly with these new laws that we've been talking about by the Israeli parliament. That is another theme we've been hearing from the speakers before her as well, throwing their support to UNRWA, saying it is indispensable and that this law that's being passed by Israel will only further the suffering of the Palestinian people.
Gabe, thanks very much for keeping us updated. That's Gabriel Elizondo there at the United Nations in New York.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.